Hello everyone, in this video I wanna review the fretboard trainer that is available in the free version of the app. I cannot say that this is 100% free because this free version of the app has one ad a day maximum, but after watching this one ad, for the rest of the day you will not get any ads and any interruptions. I already did a brief review of the trainer in the previous video where I was reviewing the whole app, all the features, but I didn't go into much details in that previous video. And I added a couple of more things for the trainer, so I want to review everything all together here. To get to the trainer, just go to the menu. Here you see that I'm using the free version of the app, then to trainer, and here are all the different games that you can play in the free version of the app. All the games are free except these 4, but they are extremely complex and I doubt that you will need them. So there are games for notes, intervals, then scales, ear training. Different games may have different set of settings. For example, note games have the note selection, and interval games may have interval selection. Most settings here are shared across games. For example, if you select any notes for training and then switch to other game will have the same note selected. So usually settings are shared across all games, but different games may have different set of different settings. In general, this is like a sandbox. You decide for yourself the complexity of the trainers. There is no progression or anything like that. You decide how many notes you want to train, how hard you want these exercises to be, based on these settings. And when you open any trainer and you see this fretboard comes from the same fretboard setting that you have on the main page. And the sound as well. So all the sounds are as well from the tuning. So if you go here, I have the E-standard 6-string guitar, but if you switch, for example, to tuning to, let's say, 4-string bass and go to trainer, you will see the bass here in that specific tuning that you selected for your main page, and all the sounds are also from the bass instead of a guitar. Let me switch back to the guitar. First, let's go briefly over the games, just for you to see which games exist and to not waste your time. And then later I will go into details and explain what its settings does to all these games, how you can control the complexity of them and so on. The first game is Identify Note. It shows you the note on the fretboard and you have to say which note that is. I will explain later why some of these are grayed out and some are available. But these are the 6 options that you have to answer this question. When the question is asked, the sound is playing. You can disable the sound here. You can reset the game here. And here you can see wins and attempts. So if I, let's say, answer wrong, actually this is correct. Okay, 1 attempt, 1 answer, 1 correct answer, and this is 100%. If I answer something wrong, this will change. So I did 3 attempts, only 2 are correct. I did 4 attempts, 2 are correct. That's pretty much it for this game. Then you have Find Note. Actually, the notes for the games that you can configure here, how many notes you want to train. And Find Note is the inverse of the previous one. You have to find this G sharp. It doesn't matter where you find it. You can find it here, you can find it here. Any location will suffice as a correct answer. Sorry, here. And everything is the same. Then you have Find Note on area. This is very simple to this one, just a variation. This one forces you into some area, unlike the previous one. And you have to think more because even if you know that F sharp is here, for example, you are forced to find that F sharp in this area. And this area always moves somewhere. You have here the same for fret, same as area, but it will just highlight 1 fret for you. And the same for string. Just the same type of the game, just different variation. Then you have this Find All games, Find All locations. It is the same, but you have to find all the different locations for this note. Like F sharp, you have to find all the different locations of G sharp. And then G, And until you find all of them, it will not switch to the next question. There are also 4 variations of this game. This one is string guided, which will highlight a string for you to find the note specifically on this string, and then on the next string, and so on and so forth. Same for the frets guided. You have fret highlighted, it forces you to move around the fretboard. And you have guided start. This one will force you to find the first note, and then relative to that note you can find the rest. And this is useful for when you improvise, because usually you go from root note to root note. And it is useful to know where all the rest notes are relative from any note on the fretboard. And this guide, first guide, when you start with the game, will push you into different locations on the fretboard for you to start from that note and then find all the notes everywhere else on the fretboard. And you have the same fret guided start. And for interval games I have to do some explanation, because these games are not about intervals in a classical sense, by which I mean the distance between 2 notes in semitones. These games are about intervals within a scale or a chord on the fretboard. For example, here you have E major scale. This is the root note, which is the note E, and these are all the intervals of major scale. But this game is not about the scale intervals, it's just any intervals. So the second, fifth, and no matter which scale you select, you will always have perfect fifths here. So this is about intervals one by one, not about intervals of some specific scale. And once you know all these intervals, where they are relative to the root note, you can reuse this map and you can navigate the fretboard like this. We are talking only about ascending intervals, and we disregard the distance between actual 2 notes, because those games will ask you 2 notes and you have to say which interval it is relative to that note. It's not relative to that note, but around that note. For example, from this note to this note we have the perfect fifths. This is semitone distance between those 2 notes is the actual correct perfect fifths. But if you look at these 2 notes, if the game asks you these 2 notes, you will see that from this note to this note, this is the actual descending fourth interval. But we do not care about descending intervals, and we do not care about the distance. As long as this is the perfect fifth relative to any root, doesn't matter which one, we have to answer that this is the perfect fifth. Because the point is just to find your way around the root note. When knowing map around the root note, you can navigate the fretboard from this root note to another one, and that other root note will have the same map around it. Almost the same map, because some tunings allow you to move some patterns vertically without any problems, and some don't. For example, E standard tuning doesn't allow you to move freely the patterns vertically without messing them up. But there is a simple rule for that. Let's actually see that. You can see here this small pattern. Above we have fourths, below we have fifths. And this same pattern here is the same, here is the same. But when we cross from the string G to B, we have to move notes 1 semitone up to the right side. So you can see here that the same pattern as this one, but this note, because we crossed from G to B, has to be moved to the right. Same pattern here, but both of these notes were moved to the right because both of these notes cross from G to B. For example, on the bass tunings for, let's say, standard tuning for bass, 5-string bass guitar, this pattern is the same no matter where you move it vertically. But for each standard you have to remember to adjust these small shapes when you move from G to B. To know where intervals are relative to the root note is beneficial, because you will not care which scale you play, as long as you know that that scale has some intervals in it. Let's select here, for example, scales. You can see here a lot of scales have perfect fourths and perfect fifths. As long as you know the formula for the scale, you will know where those notes are on the fretboard relative to the root. And it's easier to navigate the fretboard relative to some roots, pivoting on those roots, than to navigate the fretboard using all these big shapes, like cage shapes. Because they are big, and you can see here where the root note is inside them. And when you change, for example, now for minor scale, you can use this same shape, but the root note will be in different places. And it's hard to remember where the root note is for each scale in these shapes. Instead, it's much easier to remember very small shapes. For example, you can remember this small shape. We already covered 4 notes out of 7 notes of a scale. Very easy to learn, and you can easily reuse it. For example, here, same shape. Here, same shape. And here it is same shape, but it is adjusted because we cross from G to B. This adjustment is specific to E standard tuning. Different tunings may not allow you to freely move vertically shapes. And we can even go further and look at a bigger shape. Let's take one small shape. This is very small shape for the major scale. And you see they include all the 7 intervals of this scale. And if you know this scale and if you know this rule, how to adjust it, you can fill in a lot of the fretboard. For example, I'm using this same shape. Here I adjusted these 2 notes, I moved them up because we cross from G to B. And then I can do the same, again, this same shape. You can see how much of the fretboard I filled in by just knowing this small shape of these intervals. And if you know them one by one, you know that, okay, if my scale formula has 7, I know that I can find this 7 relative to this root if I go 1 semitone down, or I can find it here across, and so on. Now let's go to the actual games. The first game here is Identify Interval. You can select the intervals that you want to practice. Because these games disregard the distance between notes, if you select both 4s and 11s, it will be at the very same place on the fretboard, even though the distances that these 2 intervals represent are different. Let's start the game. It shows you 2 notes and it plays them. You can disable the play here. And you have to say which interval that is. You see here that this area is small and you can unlock all this fretboard, but it doesn't make sense. Because if you unlock it, it will ask you the root here and note somewhere here. And it doesn't make sense to learn such far distances because we are working around the root note. Also, it doesn't matter where you train on the fretboard. You can train on the first 5 frets. You don't have to train here and then go somewhere here and train at this location, because all these patterns translate horizontally at the same. So this same pattern will be the same here and anywhere on the fretboard. The only thing that you have to make sure is that all of these strings are included, because you have to train relative to each string, since different tunings may have different patterns depending on where the root is on which string, like I was explaining earlier. The next game is Find Interval. This one you have to select yourself where this interval is. Then you have 3 variations of this same game. This one has area, but where you can change the size of an area, and it forces you to explore intervals into different directions relative to the root note. Then you have the same for the fret, just like area, but for the fret. And for the string, again the same, but for the string. And now let's look at the scales games. This one is a combination of all the above, because this one is scale intervals. You can select here the scale that you want to train on and multiple or single root. If you select multiple, it will ask you randomly. And you have for this game you have to fill in all the intervals of that scale, just like a Minesweeper game. And the same for scale, but for notes. Same as for intervals, but it will show you notes instead. Then you have ear training games. These are very primitive. I would say find a better app if you want to do ear training, because there are much better apps, and find the app that is built for ear training, because these games are just a bonus. They are not very great and they don't have a great sound, but you can try them anyway. So identify note, you can select here notes that you want to train. You can select here the note range from which these notes will be picked from. And if you're a newbie, you can set, let's say, 1 octave, and it will be easier game. If you make the range bigger, it will be harder game. It just plays the note. This allows you to replay it on the wrong answer. You see, when I select wrong answer, it replays, so that I could hear the question again, or you can just tap on this button to replay. And you have to answer which note that is. And that's it for this game. Identify interval. Again, you select intervals. Unlike previous interval games, this one takes into account the distance between two notes, so this interval and this one are different intervals now. And you can select again the range, and it will play random intervals. And you have to say which interval that is. The less intervals you select, the easier the game will be. And the last one is the same as this one, but it has a fixed root. You can select here the root, relative to which all the intervals will be built from. Because of this schema, let's select here ascending only, and you can select descending. Let's select ascending, and this schema, so every interval will start on the note C. See here, C to some note. And so on. Melody trainers I will review at the very end of the video, because they are not free and they are too complex, but I still want to review them. And now let's go to see all the settings that each game has. So identify note. First setting here is next question only when current answer is correctly. When this is on, you will be able to do as many mistakes as you want, and it will not switch the question to the next one until you answer correctly. If you disable this, now whenever you answer wrong, it will switch to the next question immediately. It will not wait you to select the correct answer. And the same for this game, because that setting is pretty much available for any game. Like when this is on, you can see here that I can answer as many wrong answers as possible, and it will not switch until I select the correct answer. Again, this is shared across a lot of games. Then you can limit number of questions. By default this is off and the game is infinite, but you can limit the number of questions in the game, let's say 5, and after 5 questions it will show you the pop-up saying your results. That pop-up doesn't have more information than here, but still it's good to see it in the pop-up format. I'm just tapping randomly just to make it quick. So here is what you see. This is the label that will be different depending on the result. There are about 100 of different labels. Number of questions, then win attempts, the same as here, and win ratio, the same as here. You can either try again or exit. Also, you can limit game by the number of minutes. You can combine these both, and when you combine, whichever condition comes first, it will stop the game. And here you can select the number of minutes that you want to train the game, and after, let's say, 5 minutes here, it will show that results pop up. This is not runtime 5 minutes. These 5 minutes are being checked on every answer switch. So if you start the game, then leave the game for 1 hour, it will not end the game. It ends the game only on the switch of the answer. On each answer switch, it will check whether it's been more than 5 minutes. Then you have this answer timeout. You can select timeout for 5 seconds, let's say, and you will see here it gives you 5 seconds to answer the question. If you are not correct or not fast enough, it will switch to the next question. Then you have this show timeout indicator or not. You can see here this is the indicator, and you can hide it if it bothers you too much. But under the hood, it will still calculate the time, and it will time out after 5 seconds. Then you have the area where you train. Right now we have 6 string, and we have 5 frets plus the open notes. You can change it. For example, if you want to train only notes on the first string on all 12 frets, you can do this. And now all the questions will be only for this first string and 12 frets. Let me get it back. This is for all notes. You can select all sharps, all flats, or both, or all. When you select both like this, it will ask you 1 time C sharp, 1 time D flat, even though both of these notes, this is the same note, just different names for the notes, and both of these notes will be displayed at the very same place on the fretboard. Let's actually try it just to show you. I'll select less notes. C sharp, and then D flat, same place. Then you have ability to combine. So if you want to combine C sharp and D flat into one question, one answer, you can do this. But for combination to work, you have to select both of them. If you don't select both of them, this combination will not work, and you will be asked only D sharp. So I take both and combine, and now all the games for notes will ask you different. I need to find the right note. You see, F sharp, G flat, so it combines them. And the same it will do on identify note games. You see here, C sharp, D flat, the same combined, A sharp, B flat, because that's the same note, just different names for the note. Then you have this maximum number of answer options. Here you have 12 answers, actually not 12, more than 12. Or maybe 12. Let's select all sharps and to have it 12. You have 12 answers, but only 6 options are highlighted to answer. You can change this number to, let's say, 3, and then games becomes easier, because now you only have 3 options here to answer. The next setting is for the layout. The minimal layout only shows the number of options. For example, when we have 3 options, you will see 3 options. This is bad because it always changes the answers, but somebody may like it, I don't know. This was till recently, because I'm only recently added these layout options. Then you have row. Row shows all the notes that you selected to train on, but shows only number of options that you also select. Then if you have a lot of notes, like let's select all, and let's select row. When you have them all, you have to scroll to see them all. And for that case, I added the grid. You can see it in the grid. All the UI moved down because there's just not enough space, and this fretboard will be very, very small if I keep the UI at the top, sorry. And here you see all the grid, and you see your 3 options that you selected that you want for each question. And you have grid minimal. Let's select all flats, all sharps, and grid minimal. Grid minimal replaces outside nodes. So nodes that you didn't select to train on will be replaced with dots. I could hide them completely, but I left the dots because I want to keep the structure of the grid. The next option is reveal correct answer before switching to the next question. So let's say identify node. This is applicable only for when you have a timeout or when this is off. So when you have a timeout, let's say 5 seconds, after timeout it will not show you the correct answer here. Or if you select wrong, it will not show you the correct answer. If you want it to show you the correct answer, you can select this option and turn it on, and it will show you the correct answer when it switches to the next question. See, now it shows the correct answer. Next option here is pause on the wrong answer. Now, again, it is also applicable only when you have timeout or this is off. This will pause the game so that you had some time to reflect. So I selected the wrong answer, it pauses the game completely, and to continue I have to tap on the fretboard and it will ask me the next question. So let's try without reveal. Yeah, it doesn't reveal, but it pauses. Then you have two settings where you can select how many milliseconds you want to wait before it switches to the next question on correct answer. You can take it all the way to, let's say, 3 seconds. And on the wrong answer as well. So after correct answer, if you answer correctly, it will wait for 3 seconds before it switches to the next question. And the same for wrong answer. Then you have the visibility options for indicators. We're talking about these two, this one and this one, and you can hide them both and you will not see it anymore if you want to focus just on the fretboard. Then you have this show game results on closed. This is applicable to all games because, for example, if you have infinite game, if you don't have any limits like this, maybe you want to see that results pop up. So when that option is turned on, when you close the game, it will show you the results. And you can either try again or exit. Okay, let's go to other games, just to show you all the options that are available. Here, nothing new. Then find out on area. It has area picker, so you can select, for example, 4x4 area instead of 3x3. And now this area is bigger. Then you have show wrong answer on the fretboard. So if you play find note game, for example, actually I have to disable a setting. Let's disable this and let's enable this. When I answer it, I see this axis here and it doesn't reveal me these wrong answers. And I can turn this on. And when this is turned on, I will see the wrong answers too here. And this makes the game simpler because now I can see, I can find the note relative to this one if I know where it is. Area, then fret, there is nothing new for these games. Find all locations, again nothing new. Let's go to intervals. For intervals you can select again these layout options. Let's say grid and let's select more here. You can see here that it is grid now and it shows all these intervals. For these games, again, as I said, because the distance doesn't matter, we can select all of these, and all of this will be at the same very place on the fretboard. But the most important are the first row to train on. Fine interval. Nothing new here. You have area, again, you can select the area to whatever you want. You see this is shared across all the games, so if you selected for notes area for the intervals, the same area is applied here as well. Then scales. For scales, you can select the scale here, like this. Any scale that you have, including custom. Then you can select single root or multiple. If you select single, it will always ask you to fill in C major. You fill in once and it will ask you again to fill in C major. If you select multiple, it will switch to the next question. This is by default off. So if you select, let's say, E major scale, it will always start on the note E, and relative to that note E, you have to fill in the rest. If you select start on random note, it may start on any note. It will not start on E. It may start, but it doesn't have to. It may start on other notes. The same for intervals. Start on random note. It will not always start on the root. Here it starts on the major third. Then you have ear training. For ear training, you can select the notes as usual. Then you can select the note range. For intervals, you can select the direction, ascending, descending, or both, randomly. Then which ones you wanted to use. The note range. And that is all. And fixed root. Sorry. For the fixed root, you have additional setting, which is this one. You select the root. You have these schemas. For ascending interval, this schema means that it starts on C and finds the next note somewhere else to the right. You can change this. This schema means that it will end interval on C. All the ascending intervals will start somewhere here and end on C. And the same for descending. First one will start on some note here and end on C, and this one will end on C. Or actually, yeah, this one ends on C, and this one starts on C and ends somewhere to the left. And this one reveals correct answer before switching to the next question. Again, applicable only for when this is off or you have a timeout. Because if this is off, you will not see the correct answer. So let's wait 5 seconds or select something wrong. It doesn't reveal the notes. With this on, it will reveal those notes. Like this. These are all parameters for these games. And finally we got to the melody trainers. These are not free in the app, and so I switched to the paid version of the app. In the free version of the app there are 10 melodies per day limitation. But I need the pro version just to demonstrate these games. So the first one is the melody relative to the root. You select the scale, you select here the scale, you select the chord progression, and so on and so forth, and based on that it will generate a small melody like this. So it played the chord progression, then it played the melody, and then based on this setting it will either repeat it indefinitely, or if it is turned off it will stop. And you also can play just the melody without the chord progression. And the task of this game is for you to input all of these intervals that this melody consists of, relative to the root. So each interval here is relative to the root note, not to the previous note. Also in the settings here you can select whether you want to input every note until you select it correctly, or whether you want to input everything. If this is off, you have to input first everything. You can switch to any note, you can input them, and then you submit, and it shows you the difference. When this is on, you will input one by one until it's correct, so it will not switch to the next one until the first one is correct. And when you tap on this, you can hear the notes of the melody. The next game is for notes. So you have to fill in all the notes that melody consists of relative to that scale. The note names are based on the scale and the root note. The next one is just directional. So the point, you just have to say which direction the melody goes, up or down. And this interval just shows you the same interval, but you have to say which direction it goes, up or down, until the end. And the last one is the same as previous one, but now you, instead of just picking the direction, you have to actually say how far since the previous note the next note goes. So if we select, for example, let's find this note. So relative to this note B, how far we went from this note to this note. And let's go through all the different settings. So I revitalize this one. This is the number of answer options that you can see at the bottom to answer. Then you have number of notes. You can make longer melodies, like let's say 10 notes. Here you select the scale. You can select major, minor. You can select any scale from here. Also, you can input the scale using these intervals, just if you want to quickly input the scale. Here you select the chord progression that the melody generator will use to generate the melody. It doesn't affect much, but still it uses that. Then you have the note range and root note. Note range defines the area which notes are going to be used to generate the melody, and here is the root note for the scale. So if this is C and we select major scale, so this melody will be based on C major scale using this chord progression 1 from 5. You can start always on the melody on the root note. So if you selected C, melody will always start on this root. And you can switch if you want a different harmonic. If this is on, then this root is ignored, and root will always be, for every melody it will be different, but taken from within this range. And then you have melody rhythm. When this is disabled, each melody is straight 8 notes. All the space in between notes is the same. If you turn this on, then melody starts to generate different space in between notes. But it affects only the spacing. It doesn't make some notes longer, because I'm just reusing the notes that I used to play the note when you tap on the fretboard. And these additional answer labels, they're different for different games. For example, for this game, additional labels are these gray labels. So for these interval-based games, you can also display the notes underneath, if you selected that you want notes. Also, you can display an harmonic equivalence, and for intervals, it will just tell you the same intervals. These are the same intervals that will be at this very same place on the fretboard. For example, the 4th and 11th is at the same place on the fretboard. Then for notes, you can again display intervals underneath. And if you select the harmonic equivalence, it will tell you, for example, you see C the same as B sharp, and F is the same as E sharp, and so on. And these games also have notes and harmonic equivalence. And that is pretty much it. You will be able to find this video if you want to refresh your memory about some games, or maybe to check out how different settings works for some games. You can find it here. I will put the link, and you just tap and it opens YouTube. And if you're still here, I want to review a couple of new features that I just added because I need some place on the internet where there is a review of every feature so that I could send people to that video to see how it works. It's much easier to explain this way. And these features are not included in the previous video where I reviewed the whole app because they were just recently added. So the first one, I replaced this picker for notes. So now it looks better and functions better because now you can see here all the notes and you can see how they relate to each other and so on. Then the next one is this diagram. It shows the intervals and notes of a diagram. You can see outside notes that are not in the scale but on the cycle, and outside the intervals. There is also this row diagram. It is the same thing but just unwrapped. But this one is better because it shows the circular nature of notes and intervals. And also if you have the chord highlighted, for example, in E major scale we have G sharp minor chord that we can use in the chord progressions. These are the intervals of that chord. And this diagram will show this chord too. So when this chord comes up in the chord progression, you have to emphasize its notes for the melody to sound good. And so now, using this diagram, you can either pivot towards the G sharp note and use this intervals relative to G sharp note, or you can pivot towards the root of a scale, because when you play a melody on a scale, most likely you are already pivoted to the root note. And this can map you from the chord intervals to the scale intervals. So when G sharp minor comes up in the chord progression, you can play the major third of a scale, the perfect fifth of a scale, and the major seventh of a scale, because these three intervals of a scale are the intervals of this G sharp minor chord. And the last feature that was just requested by a user a couple of days ago is that previously I had only the intervals color coding. So this color coding right now is for the root, so the root is different color, and when I change the key, it moves it to the other location. But now, by the request, I added this color coding by notes. You can see here, when you change the scale palette, you can now switch either you want to color code the intervals or notes. And you can change here any colors for each note and text color as well. You can save it. In the free version of the app, you can have one custom scale palette. And now whenever you see, for example, the note D, it will always be yellow. It doesn't matter which root you have. And if you want to highlight now the root note, just to see where the root note is of a scale, you can do it here. So you can just highlight it here, select some color, whatever you want, and it will just highlight this note. And when you change the scale, it will highlight a different note so that you knew where each root is. Because with note color coding, these colors are pretty much snapped to the fretboard positions. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the comments to the video. You can also use request a feature or report a bug. Both of these just open the email app with my email pre-filled, and you can send me an email and I will respond back to that email from which you send it to. I'll usually respond quickly within a day because we may have some time zone difference. And that's it. Thanks for watching.